Hey everyone, Miss GoElectric here. For today's episode of In Charge, I'm actually in Austin, Texas for South by Southwest, and I am right now in the Electric Roadhouse in the Rivian space here in Austin. I'm excited to show you guys all around, but I have a special guest with me. Jeff is here. He is the chief designer at Rivian, and he's gonna talk to us a little bit about not only the design, but something new that they have going on back here. So let's get into it. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, Jeff. I am very much looking forward to hearing about your background because you've been working on this Rivian project for quite some time, but you actually came from another off-road brand. So can you speak to your experience on working at a legacy brand like Jeep and how that experience has transitioned to working with Rivian?
Yeah, so I actually went to school in Detroit. I'm originally from Canada, just outside of Toronto, about 30 minutes west of Toronto. Went to school in Detroit, was one of obviously the big three there. There's a lot of really great design schools there, specifically College for Creative Studies. Graduating there, I started in '04 at Daimler Chrysler at the time. When I left, it was FCA before it became Stellantis. But working there, I got a lot of opportunity to work on quite a few different brands, but the one that I spent the most time on was a Jeep brand. And working on the Jeep brand is really fun because it's a really well-known brand. It obviously has a lot of history behind it. And through working on that, I got some opportunities to work on some really cool and iconic vehicles. But I met RJ in 2017. I wasn't unhappy where I was at, but talking with RJ, he was so inspirational that it was one of those things that I couldn't pass the opportunity to do this. Not only one, because I was really enamored with the conversation I had with him, but the opportunity to start something from scratch was one of those opportunities that I just couldn't pass up.
And can you speak more on that? Because I think that is what a designer's dream come true is sometimes when you work at a legacy brand, you're boxed in and you have to follow certain guidelines, but this really was like a clean slate.
It was, and I mean, it's sometimes for a lot of designers, it's actually easier to start with some sort of heritage, so you have some things you can build and expand on. So starting from scratch is, really fun, but it's also very challenging. And especially with something like, we're trying to do a truck and an SUV. And when you look at trucks in traditional sense or what's out there right now, is that the way that they communicate their power and strength is through a big grill. And we're doing an EV, so we don't need a big grill, but we still wanted to communicate that we're powerful and it's got capability, but not in an aggressive sort of way. So one of the things that we really try to push on every interface we have with the brand, especially with the vehicle, but in the spaces we go into, every design touch point that we have, is that the brand wants to be inviting. And with that, the first thing we started off is, what does the front end of the vehicle look like? So being able to create something that's very unique and new and instantly recognizable in the automotive space was definitely a challenge. I think we got it with the face that we have. I think it's one of those things that you look at and immediately you can recognize that that's a Rivian from a distance. And it really started off, the front end design was that, how can we have something that's, one, really inviting and friendly, but iconic. And it started off with an inspiration from a CMF table, color materials table that we had. And we look at a lot of different things for how we draw inspiration from, especially in our color materials, which I'll talk about shortly with the Dune edition, is that we want to really look at the things that our customers use and start to see where can we drive inspiration from that. So originally we had a little carabiner on our color materials table, and we were impressed by the finish. It was a really nice anodized finish. But another designer had this idea of, well, what if you had it on the edge of the hood and you could use this sort of carabiner as a tie down to basically lock down a kayak if you wanted to. We saw that, and at the time we just had a horizontal light bar. I asked another designer to sort of scale it up and see what it looked like, and we saw that, and I said, you know what? That's actually a really cool graphic, and that's how we ended up creating the face for Rivian.
And so speak to a little bit on the idea that you take inspiration for things. Some designers are focused on biomimicry and taking from nature and incorporating that in the design. Was there a core element that you used to kind of guide yourself towards the design to really define Rivian as a brand?
Well, a lot of it really started off as the functionality of the vehicle, and we knew we wanted to do a truck and an SUV, but wanted to really change the space with the R1T and how do you use it. So we spent a lot of time with customers in many different things. And it's not just the adventure lifestyle. That's obviously something we're doing, but even something as simple as going to the beach, or if you've got kids and you've gone to IKEA and you try to load up a vehicle, that's an adventure in itself. So just watching our customers and trying to find ways that we could sort of inspire functionality and let the function sort of drive the form And then once we had that, with a lot of the different things that we were seeing, that the type of customers and the problems we wanted to solve for, it ended up driving us to get inspiration from those types of things that you would use. So whether it was surfing, kayaking, mountain biking, I mean, these are a lot of things that we drew inspiration from, just in terms of forms, but also functionality. Our design language is something we want it to be. It's very simple, and that's the challenge, because to do something that's very simple and clean but still looks, premium and unique, is one of the hardest things. And using design constraints, so not adding a bunch of things that are decorative. I mean, using the interior is a great example. Just the way we treat wood. So we want, one, if we're going to use wood, we want actual natural materials. But traditionally, you see in automotive, the way that wood is used, it's usually a decorative wood spear. And one of the things that really pushed in design is that if you were to take it away, it should literally look like something's missing. So on the R1T interior, if you took that piece of wood out, like, the whole instrument panel would fall apart. It's basically the thing that holds the screen. It creates the shape for the vents. And even the vents, the way we looked at it is like, think about it as a home space. Like, in a home space, you don't want to look at your HVAC.
Right.
And so why would you want to see it in your car? Like, I think that's something that is a design trait that has been in many different vehicles, where you kind of celebrate the vents. We wanted them just to disappear. Just think of it more of a home space versus a traditional automotive interior.
But I love that you're talking about the functionality element of it, because I have an R1T and I find that especially the locking storage space is just incredible, not only with the frunk, but also with the gear tunnel, and the fact that I can use the gear tunnel door as a step to get on my vehicle and start attaching things. But can you talk about what the benefits of having an EV platform are in order to achieve some of these design goals, in order to make it the most functional vehicle for the customer?
Well, the fact that you have an R1T, you knows very well. It's pretty amazing. I mean, especially you look at, in America, people use trucks, I mean, as daily drivers. Like, they're family vehicles. They don't use them just to haul things. Like, they drive them more for just to do basic things.
I will say, I even know some friends that have pickups that they don't even bring anything in the back. They just
exactly.
like to drive them.
They just like to drive them. But
Yeah.
but it's amazing to me that a vehicle that's literally designed to haul things can't do basic things like go grocery shopping. Because if you go into your truck and you go grocery shopping, where are you going to put the groceries? You're not going to put them in the bed, because they're going to fly around, and they're also going to roll around, and you don't know what to do. You end up putting them in the back seat, because there's nowhere else to put it, which is fine if you don't have kids or additional passengers in there. So something as simple as that was, we're looking at, well, how can we use this vehicle and really just not only do things like hauling stuff, but also make it extremely usable. So one of the things we looked at is, like, you mentioned the gear tunnel. I mean, it's such a great thing to be able to put things that are lockable, can stay clean, or even if you get something dirty. You said you use it for, like, climbing up and stuff. I use mine for, I like to go dirt biking. So one example, the way we did the lift gate and why we have a shorter bed, we designed it around that use case of being able to fit a dirt bike in there. So the design of the tailgate has a gooseneck hinge, which allows it to extend further, but then you can fit a bike on there.
I can actually attest to that, because I literally fit my electric motorcycle. I have a Zero DSRX in the back of my Rivian and have driven it from Michigan to Tennessee several times. So it can even fit like a full-size adventure motorcycle.
yeah, which is one of the things that we really wanted to incorporate. It's also just awesome to be able to lower the suspension so you can load it up. But then even one of the things that I do as well is when I'm go dirt biking, I don't want to get dirty, so I'm usually standing on the gear tunnel and putting my gear on before I go to do that. And then also when I come back and everything's dirty, I can just throw it in the gear tunnel. The other thing too is, because of an EV platform, which you mentioned, is because of that, that's how we're able to get that gear tunnel, because we don't have to have all-wheel drive. We don't have to have a drive axle going, all the way from front to rear. That would eliminate something like that. It would also eliminate the flat floor that we have in the interior. And also because of an EV powertrain, we get a huge front trunk, which is the primary space that I use. I know some people use it in other places. My wife has an R1S, and she likes to put everything in the front as well, which is really just useful. And it's also nice for little things, especially if you're in certain areas where people will break the glass if they see something in your vehicle. Nobody's going to see the front trunk and you can't get to it. So even from a security standpoint, it's extremely useful.
I use it every single day, and I even put like my full-size suitcase in there when I'm traveling, because when I'm going to the airport, it's so tight and congested that I don't want to have to open up like either the back, because I back into my spot up against a concrete pillar, but then I use my front to get all my luggage out, because it's just way easier access. I'm out in front of it instead of having to open doors in your car. So I just think that that's such a game changer. But you have the next generation, and not only that, but a new design element. So I'd love to get your perspective on what you have with the California Dune that we have right behind us. So can we head over there?
Yep.
Great. All right, so obviously the first thing that strikes me with this is the color. It's California Dune. So can you explain the whole ethos of this?
Once again, as we talk about the different things we're inspired by, our vehicles are built in America. They're also designed in California. So a lot of the things we draw inspiration from is obviously some of our surroundings. And we wanted to come up with a new special edition that could sort of push a little bit in terms of our color and materials. And we really like this very like warmer tone here because a lot of our colors were cool. We wanted to introduce something warm. And it actually started all with the design of the wheels. This was one of the first things we did, which is not typical. So we designed these wheels as a sort of rugged off-road wheel. And I remember when I was having a conversation with RJ, and RJ was pushing like, hey, what if we did something with white wheels? And I said, well, if we just do white wheels, like what else could we do besides that? And white, on a wheel can be very stark. So I said, well, what if we toned it down a little bit and started drawing inspiration from the environment that we go to. And one of the things that is really important for us as a brand is that the vehicles, they look good clean, but they also look good dirty.
Yeah.
But not that they just look good dirty, that they're easy to clean, which is one thing. But one of the things that I think is really important is that they stay looking cleaner longer. Like one example is that we have our rubber floor mats, which is very traditional. A lot of people have them. Yeah, they're great for like water repellent and dirt like that. But one of the things that we love about our cars is a chill witch floor mats. It's just one example because I have them in my car. I've had my R1T now for about 4 years, and I haven't actually cleaned them. I usually just take them out, dust them, put them back in.
And you said it because I haven't seen mine either, so I don't feel bad anymore.
And which is great because you don't feel bad. But if you had a black rubber floor mat in there, which we do sell because people love them, as soon as you walk in, it gets dirty.
Yeah.
So it's about looking cleaner longer. The other thing we spent some time on as well is like looking at alternative flooring materials with this. So this is just unique to this interior. This is a new textile that we created, which it does a couple things. Like one, it's water repellent. So if you spill some water on it, if you wipe it up quickly, you can clean it up. But also if you wanted to wipe it down just to get it clean, you just take a wet rag and it comes up really easily. The other thing, because it's a textile, is the dirt and the like particles of sand and things like that don't actually go into the ply. So you can really easily vacuum it and clean it out, which is really nice. But we didn't if you did something here that was rubber, one, it would not look very premium. Two, it's not great for acoustics. That's the other thing too, is like when you have like rubber on the floor and things like that, it makes the sound sort of reverberate inside the vehicle. And because we're an EV, we want it to be really quiet. That's one of the things we really wanted to make sure we did. And then we took the exterior color, which was once again inspired by the dunes of California, and brought it into the interior. And one of the things that I think is very different for this one as well is we sort of did this two-tone where we left the upper black and the lower in our sandstone interior color, which one, it just like these are the areas that can often get really dirty because if you're getting in the car, you're grabbing them, or if you got dirt in your hair, you can really easily clean it. But then doing some of the lighter color down below, which gives us a really nice two-tone effect, which we don't have in any of our other interiors. But then, of course, we still have this being a tri-motor, our little pops of yellow that we have in our headrest bezels, in the back of the grab handles, in the back of the seats, and of course the calipers and the badges.
Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, these wheels are so cool because they remind you very like rally inspired.
Yes, that's exactly where they came from.
Yeah. So is there any other design elements as far as like, I know that we talk about the physical hardware a lot of times, but software wise, can you talk a little bit on the design and how that impacts you and what you're doing with your job at Rivian?
Yeah, it's honestly one of the most fun parts of my job that we get to play around with. If you actually look at what we have on the screen there, is something that we introduced late last year, which is our drive mode screen. That is something that we call cell shading internally, which was inspired by Japanese manga. I think things like Studio Ghibli. It was one of those areas that we had a lot of fun with. And the reason is like if you look at it, it's like as we have so many different drive modes, so one being able to communicate it visually, it's also an opportunity to be a little bit fun and playful. And being playful is something that's really important to us as a brand. Like we don't like to take ourselves too seriously. Things that we do like for Halloween, which is all driven through our software, which we have a lot of fun with. I don't know if you saw last year.
There were some new ones too. Like three different spooky elements. It was cool.
Which is really fun that we were able to do that. But using the drive modes as a perfect example, it's one of those things where you see in a lot of vehicles, and it's something that's happening where you have these highly realistic digital representations of your vehicle. I don't know. I kind of equate that to being inside your car, holding a picture of your car. Like you already know what it looks like. What's the point? So at least be able to have a little bit of fun with it. And within those drive modes too, if you actually put two fingers on the screen, they'll actually rotate to show you that they are live. And then we'll make sure that whatever vehicle's on there is the right color, it's got the right wheels, so it matches that the vehicle that you have.
So you really get to have your vehicle that you can see from the inside. Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. So can you speak to any experience that you have specifically with this vehicle? Have you taken it out yet in the dunes?
Yeah, we have. We're also testing some really cool drive modes that we have. I can't talk too much about, but we're releasing on our quad motor, which is really exciting as well. But the thing that is really important for us as a brand as well is that sort of, I like to call it the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality that our brands have between being very capable on-road and very capable off-road. And oftentimes you sort of get a compromise between one and the other. And using this, especially with our sand mode, which is really fun, it's a highly capable vehicle. And to be able to just go out in dirt and sand, but also just on pavement and have a lot of fun in the vehicles is one of the things for us is like, that's part of that joyful nature. It's like, you can, the performance on this car is just nuts. The fact that you can do, 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds in a, 7,000 pound SUV is really
pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
I will say it's even fun in the dirt in the middle of downtown Austin where you guys have your little joyride going on. I went and tested that out today. So that was pretty impressive, even to see how steep it can handle so cleanly and effortlessly with that powertrain. And that was a tri-motor. I mean, we weren't going fast, but it was pretty impressive.
And they are highly capable. It's also fun just to, like, the ease at which you could do that. Like, having spent a lot of time, and obviously my past life as well, in doing off-roading, just the how good EVs are. Like the fact that if you're going up a hill, you have instant torque. You're not waiting for an engine to rev. So if you want to go up a hill, you don't need to get as much as a run at it to go up because you need that engine inertia to go.
Yeah,
like
it doesn't sound painful.
yeah, the torque is instantly there, and also it's quiet. That's a big part of it as well.
Yep.
It's like it's one of those things which I've done quite a bit. If you're off-roading in this really remote area, and you're in an ICE vehicle, it's amazing that you don't really notice it when you're in the city because you're hearing a lot of noises. But when that's the only noise is the hum of an engine, and you shut it off, you're like, it's just like instant like zen. So being able to not hear that is great. But even something like if you were experiencing it yesterday, as you're going down the hill, like you don't have to worry about the car just rolling. Like it's automatically using the regenerative braking to slow down the vehicle, so then that way it goes down to the speed that you actually want it to go.
Yeah. Now, I know that you can't say too much about what's going on for future product, but I would love to hear a little bit about R2 and R3X, especially R3X, because I don't think that there's really anything quite like it on the market right now. And I know it's not on the market now, but it's coming. So can you talk a little bit about your design direction from those two?
I mean, those are really fun projects to work on. So R2 we have coming, Q2 of next year, which I'm super excited about. It's taking the essence of what an R1S is and distilling it down into a smaller package and making sure that, yes, to reduce costs, we have to get some content out. But with that, we don't want the vehicle to feel like a lesser version of R1S, which is a really difficult challenge to do, but I'm really proud with where we ended up. And it's the vehicle that will allow a lot of customers who maybe can't afford an R1 to really get into the brand. So with that, taking off from R1 and going into an R2, which we wanted to build off of that, the next vehicle that I think a lot of people, when I was just reading online comments about it, were like, oh, Rivian's going to do an R2T, and it was going to be a smaller truck, and that was sort of the expected thing. Mm-hmm. I think maybe somebody thought kind of like that would be the next logical step. So with R3 and R3X, we really wanted to push, like, what do we think the Rivian brand could be, and going at even further lower price point. So when we looked at that, I talked about that, those two personalities of Rivian between off-road and on-road capability. So R1 being the pinnacle for off-road, and look at R3 as being the one, especially R3X, as being like, that's our most capable vehicle on-road, with still some capability, obviously, off-road as well. And with the form factor of that car, thinking about the size, but then also thinking about scaling to other markets, including Europe, we wanted something that really could scale the brand, not only internationally, but from a design perspective as well. And I think that was one of the things that was really fun and exciting about it. Nobody was expecting it, not only from a product standpoint, but that it took the design vocabulary of Rivian and showed how we can scale into different segments.
Yeah, and it seemed to me that you even got all the nerdy car boys to freak out about it. I'm sure you guys got a lot of reservations just from their reveal of that, because it was just very unexpected. But yes, a very cool product.
And you mentioned on something there that is very, very true as well, is that we have obviously a lot of tech in our vehicles, and we are very software-defined vehicles. But at the heart of it, we have a lot of people that work at Rivian, myself included, that are diehard car people. And being able to work on things like that, inspire your passion, and I think the best product is something that you can create something. You're not trying to create it for someone. You're trying to create something that you're passionate about, and hopefully the customers that see it appreciate that same passion.
Yeah, and they are buying it on merit because it's a cool car and not necessarily because it's an EV or it's a gas car. You're bringing in that crowd where I think at this time is really important to get more people on board with electrification, is to appeal to a wider audience like that. Thank you for spending time with us, Jeff, and giving us a full tour of the California Dune and a little bit of insight on the R2 and the R3X that's upcoming. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this latest video, and until next time, drive, fly, ride. Go electric.